to this episode of Java. And today I will be summing up pairs of numbers in a sequence. So let's get into it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. And I am doing it in Replit, so you will see my Chrome page. So if you can see, I have a test.txt file that has a list of numbers. The very first number is how many numbers I have in my list. So I have 22 numbers in my list, and they're just some numbers I kind of chose at random, and it could be as small or big as you want. At first I started doing just 1-digit numbers, and then I kind of ventured off into other numbers. So that's what I have for a test case. And then in my main program, I want to review this code for you. And let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger so you can see my code. Okay. All right. So here in the middle, we have import java.io file first, and then import java.io file not found. That's for error handling. And then we want to import the java.util scanner. The scanner is what helps us pull in those values from the buffer. Okay, so after that, I have my main class. Inside my main class, I have two methods. I have sum pairs, and then I have print array. Now, print array just allows me to print whatever in my list. And sum pairs is the one that does the adding of each pair of numbers in the list. Okay, so down in the main, the lowercase main, I have my file that kind of does the try catch of opening up the file and reading the file. So this is a part that was a question. So to answer the question, how do we read input that's a number into the file? Well, let's look at it. First, I described this integer called next. It starts at 0, so it's initialized with 0 as a first number, and it can change along the way. And then I have this try catch block. Okay, so the try tells me what I want to try, and if it works, do this. But if it doesn't, I do the catch part of it, and I can say file not found. The reason why I would try to open up a file, and if they didn't find the file, then it would say an error occurred, file not found, and then kind of spit out the whole stack trace information. Okay, so once I have stated this new file object, right, my obj or my object, then I'm going to initiate a scanner called myReader, which is a new scanner that takes in the file path, test.txt. The next thing I want to do is read that very first line. When I read that first line, that's going to tell me, like I said, how many numbers I should expect to follow. Now, I didn't really need to size it here because of the fact that I have a while loop, so it's going to keep on going till I get to the next one. Okay. But that's just how the requirements were set. So So I do assign size to the next line. So that way we kind of get it out the way. That's not really part of our list, right? So that very first number just tells us how many in the list. And then the next number is what starts the list. So that's when I start the next size. But I do make the number that was brought in as the size. I went ahead and changed it to a number because anytime you bring in a line, it's automatically assumed that it's a string. So I parse it into an integer using the integer.parseInt method. So then I throw in the size into that method and it spits back out an integer, and that's what I assign to n. Okay, so then I make this array, that's line 47, that is a list of numbers, and I call it nums. It's equal to an integer of size n, since I pulled in that very first number that told me how many I should expect, right? Okay, so I know how many to expect. I make a new list or a new array with that size in mind of n elements, and then I put it through a while loop. So I could have put it through a for loop. I could have said, okay, for int I equals 0 to less than n, right? Because I know the size. But I didn't do that. I just put it through a while loop till it gets to the end. Okay. So yeah, that could create a problem if it was longer than the very first number, or shorter because you have index out of range, some other type error when you go to access an element that hasn't been defined, right? So that's something to consider when you go to debug this code. All right, let's see. MyReader.close is a function that closes the reader so that the scanner, so that it doesn't take up space in the stack or the heap. All right, so the next thing I want to do is just print out what I just read. And so as you can see over here on the right hand side, it does print out all the numbers in my list or in my file. The next line you're going to see is a print array on line 57. And that print array tells me to, or I call some pairs and I put nums in it. So I put the original list, I put it into some pairs, and then I get a list back. And we'll look at that method in just a second. We'll look at some pairs so you can see. So that's why I'm able to put that list into print array and then it prints it out. Okay, so it's kind of like a list is put into some pairs, which is a function, and that function is put into print array, which is another function. So this is a pretty nested function call because we have one function calling another function, but it all is because of return statements. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to know a little bit about sum pairs and print array. First, let's start with sum pairs. So here in sum pairs, it tells in my signature part on line 6, it tells the computer, hey, I'm going to give back a list of integers. See that int open bracket close bracket? Well, that tells me that I'm returning an integer list. Okay, and it also says I'm expecting an integer list, right? That's that parameter in open bracket, close bracket list. It's a parameter that says, oh, well, in order for this to work, I need you to put a list inside of the parentheses when you call me. All right. So next line, go ahead and set the size equal to list.length. That's just for shortening purposes. Didn't necessarily have to define it like that. Only time I use it is on line 17, where I actually do a for loop through the size of it. Doesn't necessarily have to be. So, um, yeah, but it's fine. Went ahead and did that. And line 8 says, okay, I've defined my result to be half. So I am making it half the amount because I know that when I'm separating them into pairs and summing those pairs, that my size, the size of my resultant array is going to be half. So that's why I do a new result, which is a list of integers, and it is list.length divided by 2. So it's going to be half the size of the list that was brought in. Okay, so then I have integer next equals 0. So I have this next thing, and you'll see why I use the next. So if size is equal to 0, that means there's nothing in the list, which is not likely. It's not likely it's not going to happen because you're sending in a list and the list should have something in it. But anyway, then it says the list is empty. Else if the size is 1, nothing really to add up. There's nothing. So it said, so it's a printout of the list only has 1 element. Then if either one of those is not true, then it's going to go into line 17. And so that's pretty much what's going to happen. It's going to go in there and it's going to say, well, I'm going to go from 0 size, which is the length of my list, and I'm going to keep on incrementing by 1, which is the I plus plus. Okay, so if it's even, so here's the little algorithm. If it's an even number, the element that I'm on, if it's an even number, 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, on and so forth, then I am going to apply the next, that's where that next comes in. I'm going to apply the next element of result to be that list element plus the next list element. So I'm going to add up those two and put it in the result of the next one. Okay. And then I'm going to increment next plus plus because I'm going to go to the next one when I come back in here again, if I have to come back in there again. All right. So as long as we get to another even number, that's fine. We're going to have another list, right? Another result element. So it keeps on doing that over and over again until it gets to the end of the list. And then on line 25, I return the results. Okay. So when I run this, what happens is it's going to give me my original list, and then it's going to give me my sum pairs list. All right, so as you can see, I have 9, 7, 6, 3, 1, 5, 4, 6, 1, 8, 6, and so on. And as you can see on the next line, 9 plus 7 is 16, 6 plus 3 is 9, 1 plus 5 is 6, and so on. It keeps on adding each set of pairs. All right, that about says it all for this particular code. Question, comments? I love to hear them. Like and subscribe. Have a great day.
That was a nice video.
It would be nicer if I knew how to stop the video. All right. There it is.